Welcome back for the ninth installment of the Deck Showcase series here at the Epic Storm. I am Bryant Cook, and today I am presenting you with Gift Storm, a deck that is near and dear to my heart, but this also might be the last year that I upload it. Gift Storm has sort of fallen off the map, and I think next year, if I'm going to showcase it again, it's going to need some new additions, or at least to come back into the metagame. So, that aside, why don't we just hop right on in? The first card is Silence, a card that traditionally doesn't see a lot of play in Gift Storm. It wasn't my idea, it was an idea from our Discord, and the idea is that Silence stops Endurance, it stops Force Negation, it stops Solitude, all of which are pitch cards that have been printed in the last few years that sort of wreck Gift Storm one way or another. And I am playing Silence over an effect like Remand for that reason, because with Remand, you return these free cards to your opponent's hand, they just pitch another card, and you get demolished. So, yes, Remand can bounce your own Grape Shot in this theoretical world where you somehow got to the point where you were even able to like start winning. But that just hasn't been the case with Giftstorm recently. The removal in Modern has become so good, and the free counters and everything else, where Giftstorm is sort of just taking a really big hit. The power level increase of the format from the Horizon sets went around Giftstorm but didn't really include it, which is a big issue for the archetype. So I am playing Silence instead of those effects, and one of the nice things about Silence is that you can cast it and then play your creature and then play your ritual in a Manamorphose into Gifts and Given and win. So that is the idea behind the white splash. But there will be another white card coming, so stick around and see what it is. And then down here, we have Brawl Chief of Compliance. Shoutouts to Jeff Clark, who actually went to the opening of Black Panther, went to the movie premiere to get this signed by Wesley Burt because Wesley worked on the movie and is a very difficult signature to get. So, Jeff, you're amazing. Thank you. I do appreciate you getting my Brawl signed. Really awesome. So, yeah, I'm also playing these in my Pioneer deck. Great card. I love it. I mean, I really love playing with Brawl. It's a lot of fun. It's just that this strategy hasn't aged super well, unfortunately. Then down here we have Goblin Electromancer, signed by Svetlin Velinov. And I got these signed through Mark Aronowitz's group signing signature service. So if you're interested in that, the description's down below. These were a part of cards that I got from my friend Tim Cicino. Tim was playing a lot of Giftstorm in 2017, and when I was looking to finally build into the deck, I bought a lot of it from Tim up front. All the cards were super curled, like really badly curled. And I wanted them anyway. I was like, maybe I'll be able to flatten them. And then around that same time period, I started using hard perfect sleeves. And the hard perfects over time have completely flattened Tim's warped cards, like completely flattened. They're amazing. It's not going to happen in 2 months, not even in 4. But around 5 or 6 months, you'll start to see progress. And then I've owned these cards for 5-6 years now. They're just completely flat. So you can save cards that way. And if you're interested, the Hard Perfect Fit sleeves, they're in the description down below. So definitely go check those out if you're interested in flattening your foils. But yeah, so I bought a lot of it from Tim up front. And Tim was just really awesome about it. Gave me a really good price on a bunch of the cards in this deck today. So Tim, thank you. Then we have Grape Shot, my favorite Magic the Gathering card, signed by Pete Venters. I've gotten a bunch of these signed in person by Pete. I own 4 of them. Love Grape Shot. Yeah, it's just like the greatest Magic the Gathering card of all time, so what's not to love there? Gifts and Given. These were signed through Matt Schneider's group signing service, which is also in the description down below. I think it might be labeled as Mountain Mage if I remember correctly. So shout outs to Matt, who I send tons of cards to all the time to get signed. Matt, I do appreciate you as well. And yeah, Alexander Gregory. The thing about Kamigawa foils is like a bunch of them haven't been reprinted. So cards like Gifts and Given are just like bananas in price nowadays. When I purchased these in 2017 or 2018, they were roughly $80 each. I don't even want to fathom what they are with the COVID price bubble right now. I just don't want to think about it. So we're just going to move on instead. Anthony Jones, Past in Flames. So I actually have 3 copies of Past in Flames in the 75. There's 2 here and then 1 in the sideboard for this wish. And all 3 of them have been signed at different points. So all 3 signatures are slightly different. You'll see here the marker is a little bit thicker than this marker here. Also a different marker. I did group signings for Anthony myself because I knew a coworker of Anthony, so I arranged for a few of them to get signed. But on the second group signing, Anthony signed with a ballpoint pen, and I sent a marker, but Anthony just didn't use it, and I got reamed out by the internet. And it wasn't my fault. Like, there was nothing I could do. I sent the marker, and people on the internet were not very nice to me. So I decided I'd do a few more, and ultimately, people just got so pushy. I decided that I wasn't doing the group signing service stuff anymore. So shout outs to Mark and Matt who do a lot of it all the time, putting up with these rude individuals. So it really, like, I think those two don't get enough credit for all the crap that they deal with. So shout out to the pair of you. And there was a fourth one that I actually owned that Daniel D'Amato now owns, where Anthony signed it like this, but then in fine print, put Anthony Jones across the middle. And I was not a fan. So thank you, Daniel D'Amato, for purchasing it off me. You have a one in a kind Past in Flames. Yeah. So then the Burmax. So I'm talking about Wish here. I actually sent 8 of these out with Matt Schneider to get signed in Russia by the Burmax. The Burmax, the pair of them, they're a couple. They did Mystical Dispute, they did Witherbloom Command, they did Wish, and there's another card I sent off, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I can't wait for them to come back. Wish is one of my favorite cards printed this year. I've always wanted Burning Wish in Modern, and I think Wish might be the closest we get to it. I do think the Wishes would probably be an improvement to Modern. They add something nice to the format. That said, I understand if they don't want to do that. So Burning Wish would be lovely, but I'll deal with Wish in the meantime. Big fan of Wish at the moment. So these 8 rituals were other cards that I purchased off Tim Cicino. And once again, they were super warped and now they're not. So hard perfect fits are the real deal. I'm not just like a spokesman for hard perfects. They're just the greatest thing for Magic the Gathering cards ever printed. So if you're not using hard perfects and you're a foil collector, definitely check those out. I really do recommend it. And James Pake, this was another Mark Aronowitz group signing. Mark helps me with a bunch of my decks, so I'm very thankful. And then down here we have Daryl Rishi. I got these actually signed at a Magic Fest. I don't remember which one, but it was shortly after I purchased them. I just thought it was really convenient at the time that Daryl just happened to be there, so that worked out well. Plus, like, pretty sweet signature. I love signatures across the middle of the text box, so that works. Speaking of middle of the text box, Jeff Miracola. Jeff also does the mountain that I use from Invasion. So I loved that. And Jeff is a professional. I end up mailing Jeff a few times a year just to get more basics signed, and Jeff always turns them around very, very quickly. I do think that Jeff increased their prices, so you might want to check with them. I think the last time that I sent to Jeff, he mentioned he was going to increase them by $1. So ask before you send, but I think you can just reach out to Jeff via email or the website and get your card signed. Serum Visions. Ben Thompson. I actually got back cards from Ben this week, a Blood Celebrant for my Pauper deck. And Ben signs very quickly through the mail. I've always had an easy time signing with Ben. But once again, these were cards that I got from Tim Cicino, and now they lay completely flat. I got a lot of this deck up front from Tim, if I'm being completely honest. Then, obviously, over time, some of the cards have left and that sort of thing. But it's probably the best cantrip in Modern, which says something. I really think that they should consider unbanning Preordain at this point. But yeah, we're stuck playing with Serum Visions, unfortunately. And then down here we have Consider, a relatively new addition from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. It's nice because all the cards that you surveil or mill essentially with I guess it's not technically surveil, but it might as well be with Consider. It's beneficial because we are a Past in Flames deck. So even if you don't mill Past in Flames itself, milling a ritual can help later. And Consider was just a really nice upgrade over Opt or Sleight of Hand in these builds. And then down here we have Opt by John Howe. And the reason we're running Opt is that it's an instant. So that way you have the option of casting Silence if you're playing a combo mirror or something else. And that's one of the big things that I forgot to mention about Silence, is that it really improved the combo mirror matchup, which is something you needed to happen for stopping those Cascade decks and everything else. So Silence is super powerful there. But that's the main reason to run Opt, is that it's an instant. It allows you to keep Silence up. Fun fact for you, there are two John Howes. There's the one that did the invasion art, and then there's another John Howe from England that did a bunch of cards during Kamigawa block, and that John Howe will sign the other John Howe's cards. People have tried various different ways of getting the Invasion Opt artist to sign, and it's just never happened. I would love for my Invasion Ops to get signed, but people have sent cards through Wizards, they've sent cards directly, nothing has ever come back. So I don't know much about that John Howe, but maybe one day, probably not. I think we sort of just have to hope that it gets power crept out of Magic at this point. And then down here we have our Steam vents, signed by Rob Alexander. I got these done myself at an event in like 2017. But shout outs to Zane Knapp, who sold me these Steam vents way back when. I got a pretty good deal on from Zane. I think they were like 110 or 120 each from Zane. And with the COVID bubble that I mentioned previously, a bunch of these original Shocklands went through the roof. Like people are spending $2,000, $2,500 on Japanese foil OG shocks now, and I just don't think it's realistic. I think because people aren't buying and selling during these COVID times, that vendors are having a little bit of a shortage, and people are artificially inflating the price of their cards. So the shocks in particular have just gone through the roof in the last year or so. And I think it is a bubble. They're going to come back down. I don't know if they'll ever reach that original price point, but I think it's going to happen. And then down here, we have a hallowed fountain that is not from Dissension. I'm sorry. This is a Return to Ravnica hallowed fountain. I am not rich despite owning a bunch of Japanese foils. And I can't justify $2,000 on a Shockland. I'm sorry. So in the meantime, I'm going to run this Return to Ravnica one. Please, from the bottom of my heart, forgive me. I'm sure you will. And then over here we have Flooded Strand. So I've been a pretty big advocate of the Khans Fetchlands in general. I think that, one, the new card frame, people like dunk on it all the time, but it is much better for accessibility purposes. Like people with visual impairments can actually read the cards much easier, which is something the old card frame struggled with. And I get it. Old card frame is nostalgic. It reminds you of your childhood. You have fond memories. I get it. Like I feel some of that too. I'm old. But the new card frame is an improvement in my opinion, at least for like marketing purposes, but also like keeping up with the times and like like printing law and stuff like that. So moving on. Another thing about Flooded Strand is that this art is much better than the original. Like people don't want to admit it, but the original Flooded Strand art sucks. It's just too whitewashed. You can barely see what's happening. And I don't know. I think that this is better. At least you can see what's happening here. So yeah, Andreas Roca signs by mail, or at least did at the time that I purchased these back in like 2014 or 2015, whenever it was. You can reach out to them via their website and get your card signed. And I've talked about these other fetches in other videos, so I'm just going to skim through. Shelley Wan works for Disney, and she only signs like a couple times every few years. I managed to get into a group signing this year, so if you're interested in getting your card signed by Shelley Wan, email her, find out if she's signing at the moment, but there's a chance that she won't be. Marshall Arthurs sold me a set of Polluted Deltas in 2017. Marshall, you're the best. Thank you. These have only gone up in price, part of that COVID bubble thing. But yeah, prices on these are just ridiculous. They're up to like $5,000 each now, which is why I don't have the original Flooded Strands, even though I do think that this strand art is better. Yeah, and then Jack Stanton got six of my Scalding Turns signed by Philip Straub, who sort of disappeared. Both Philip and Jack disappeared actually, but it's really tough to get these cards signed by that artist. So Jack made it happen before retiring from the group signing service. I started in Invasion, as I mentioned up above, and I chose one art from each basic land when I started, and these are the arts that I selected. So I've been using these islands and these mountains for the last 20 plus years, and they sort of are Magic the Gathering to me. I love these basics. They're what I think of when I think of Magic. So yeah, Invasion for life. And then down here, Adam Paquette, Spirebluff Canal. These cards were actually gone for over 2 years. I sent them out and they just like did not come home. So what originally happened was I sent them through a signing service, and Adam Paquette was living in Australia and then moved to Germany. So they got sent back, and then the signing service sent them to Germany, and they were denied at customs because they tried charging Adam Paquette um, a tax for every single card that was going to be signed. So they ended up getting sent back, and then they were FedExed across seas. But then Adam was on vacation, so it was just like this long thing. And eventually I got my cards back, but it took 2 entire years for them to come home. And when they came home, thankfully the signature on them was just drop dead gorgeous, because I don't know if I could suffer through um, like sending out another set to get signed. So I'm really happy with how these came out. And the adventure they went on was quite wild. Dividers. So with the original token pack from the Epic Storm, there was one of My Dumb Face. I turned that one around and I use it for a sideboard divider for my decks. I just like looking at the Epic Storm logo. It makes me happy. So yeah, I keep one of those in there. And then I talk about this in my other modern videos, so I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. Fun fact for you, I recorded this last night, but my mic disconnected, so this is the second time I'm doing this in 24 hours. So I'm going to just go through these because this will be the third time that I've done this. I sent cards to Kensuke. I sent a pair of them. They got lost. So I sent a second set, and then the second set got back to me, and then like 5 or 6 months later, the other Johnny Combo players came back. So I actually own 4 of these foil signed. It's funny how that worked out. Cheaty Face not foil. I'm sorry, I only have 1 foil signed Cheaty Face, signed by Alex Bernicini. And Alex is probably the most notorious cheater in Magic the Gathering. Alex was honored to sign my cards. Alex knows how much I care about signatures and just wanted to be the signature on my Cheaty Faces, which was very nice of Alex. Mize. When I was a kid, people used to, instead of saying top decks, they'd be like, oh, I Mize this, or Mize when you drew like a hot top deck. And that was the thing, and it sort of died out of Magic the Gathering, but it was really, really popular in like 2001 to 2004 in that era. And Mize is a nice memory of my childhood. Storm. This card should just be a real Magic the Gathering card, in my opinion. Like, we have Chatterstorm, we have Empty the Warrens. Like, this card is not too powerful. Get rid of the Silver Border Wizards, just print it already. Do the right thing. That's all I have to say. Rock, Paper, Scissors. Heather Hudson. I actually sent some Baron Morse to her roughly 4 months ago to get signed. They came back pretty quickly. So if you want your Rock, Paper, Scissors signed, she does do that via mail. Don't ask me to play rock, paper, scissors with you. I don't do it. We're going to odd or even. That's it. I'm sorry. No games here. Yeah. And then this is the rest of the original token pack from the Epic Storm. I don't actually use this anymore, but I like keeping it in my sideboard. Basically as a way of stuffing my deck box to make sure that all my cards stay flat. Because the more compressed your cards are in the deck box, the more likely they are to stay flat. So that's pretty much what these cards are used for at this point. And then down here, we have our Goblin token signed by Kev Walker, the new signature, the big swoosh around the cards. And yeah, if you're interested in getting these signed, Casey Petrello has a sign service. If you search Facebook for his name, Casey Petrello, or just like Kev Walker signing, it'll pop up. And you can get your own Japanese foil Goblin token signed. These were the first ever Japanese foil Goblin tokens ever printed, which was sort of crazy that it took all the way till Modern Horizons 1 to happen, but you know, I own them now, and that's what really matters. Playing your favorite combo deck in paper just got so much easier with the Epic Storm Mini Token Pack. You can pick one up at theepicstorm.com/shop for $13. It includes 64 double-sided mini tokens. That's 128 tokens total. And they include 10 black, 10 blue, 10 red, 5 green, 5 white, 3 colorless, 20 storm counters. That means that you can count your way all the way up to 20 for Grape Shot, everyone's favorite Stormwind condition, a Galvanic Relay Exile Indicator, 4 treasure tokens for Strike It Rich, and then 10 monk tokens for our vintage friends. It also has Slime Time Live, 8 Progenitor Ooze tokens with the power and toughness already built in to make playing in paper so much easier. No fumbling around with dice. We've got you covered. Make sure to go grab those if you're playing Modern. And then Squirrels versus Goblins, Chatterstorm versus Empty the Warrens, the Battle of the Ages. You definitely need 20 Squirrel tokens and 20 Goblin tokens. You're going to love this mini token pack, I promise. And once again, you can grab that at theepicstorm.com/shop. And the Sideboard, Prismatic Ending, the other white card in this deck. Prismatic Ending is just the best removal spell ever printed. And I think I'm comfortable saying that. Now, I used to think it was swords. Now I just firmly believe it's ending. It just removes everything, and it's so much better than all of the cards people used to play. The disenchants, the council's judgments, and legacy, and then the various weird answers in modern, like shenanigans and a braid and bolt, and all these other cards. So now we just have one clean answer that hits everything. This card is just so powerful, and if you're not playing white for ending, I'd start to question why. We're actually playing white in Legacy Epic Storm just for ending, and then Orange Chance a nice kicker, pun intended, for playing white, but we're primarily doing it just for these prismatic endings. They are that good, you should be playing them, I promise. And then over here we have Spell Pierce. I was trying out Flusterstorm for a little bit, but it just, right now with the modern metagame, you need to be able to hit Chalice of the Void. You need to be able to hit Planeswalkers like Teferi. So I think they need to be Spell Pierce. And Advanced Corvax, they sign once every few years at Nebraska's War in Italy. They actually live in Los Angeles, but I can't seem to get them to sign my cards. So I'm just waiting for Nebraska's War to come back post-COVID in order to get my Spell Pierces, my Verdants, and a few other things signed. So Nebraska War, I can't wait for it. I mean, I'm not going to Italy, but I will send my cards with someone to Italy. All right, so then we have Galvanic Relay, Lucas Stankic, and Lucas signed for me earlier this year so that my cards were the first ever to be signed. So I have the first 8 ever signed Japanese foil Galvanic Relays, also Balaged Recovery. And yeah, thanks to Lucas. Lucas was like overly nice about signing my cards, wanted to do it. So if you're interested in getting your relay signed, definitely reach out to Lucas. Super nice person. Dismember. So this is a card that I took some flack for in one of my videos, but I think people didn't quite understand why they're there. So one of the big things about Magic right now is that tempo is more important than card advantage or card quality. Like tempo, especially modern, because the format's so fast. And playing Dismember, you can pay 1 mana and then for life, kill a creature, whatever. We get it. But when you have a Goblin Electromancer or a Brawl Chief of Compliance in play, Dismember is completely free. So you get to advance your game plan while slowing down your opponent, which is a huge tempo swing. And that's why we're playing Dismember. I think that sort of gets overlost because people were just like, you should be playing Lightning Bolt. Okay, then tell me why. I have valid reasoning for my card choices. Like, Lightning Bolt isn't always better. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that you have to think about how your cards fit in a vacuum, and that maybe your just blanket assumptions aren't always correct. So definitely, it's worth trying Dismember right now. I do think it's correct in this Hammer Time metagame, where you can tap out to play your creature, kill their giant idiot, and then do your thing. So Echoing Truth is sort of a secondary answer to these prismatic endings up here, where I don't think you necessarily need to play this effect anymore. Like, it could just be a 4th ending, but I decided to split it up because it is a little bit easier to answer things like ley lines with Echoing Truth than it is the endings. That's pretty much it. There's no real way to tutor for it, so I think you're just gonna have to find it. I mean, that's the truth here. But it's worth playing in my opinion. It's just a nice catch-all. You don't have to, but it's worth it. And then over here we have Pact to Negation, signed by Jason Chan. I talked about this in a few other videos at this point, but I got this from my friend Juan Valdez, who sold me the entire set at a very good deal. Juan, thank you. And these might be one of my favorite cards I picked up this year, actually. I went from going like, maybe I'll get just one, to getting the full play set. And I've gone from, hey, maybe I'll play one of my decks, to maybe I'll play the full playset of my deck. So I wouldn't be surprised if I try a list with 4 Pact to Negation and Giftstorm at some point. Just because I've been loving this card in every deck I put it in. So me trying 4 Pact in this deck isn't crazy. And then we have our win conditions. Grape Shot, I've already gone over. Mark Brill, Empty the Warrens. I actually own 8 Japanese foil Empty the Warrens. There's a time period in 2018 where both Giftstorm and the Epic Storm were empty decks. So I played 4 of each in each deck. Or, I'm sorry, did I say that correctly? 4 copies of each in each deck. And when I saw Jeff Clark's empties with his big Braille signature in the middle, I just had to get it. The other ones that I had it next to the set symbol really small, and I was like, I can't live my life not having this other empty signature. So I ended up getting this done, and I just love it. Yeah, Mark Braille once again signs via mail, so if you're interested, just contact Mark through his website. And then this is the other copy of Past in Flames that I mentioned up above. Into the extra cards, pieces of the puzzle. I tested this again recently because I wasn't super thrilled with Galvanic Relay in this format, because you end up burning 2 mana rituals to make 1 mana, and you don't actually have any powerful mana effects in Modern. So I went back to trying pieces, and I was just immediately reminded at how much worse it is than Galvanic Relay. So even though Galvanic Relay isn't perfect compared to Legacy, it's still much better than Pieces of the Puzzle, in my opinion. If you have to play one, definitely play Galvanic Relay. That's my recommendation. Selene Vision. This is a card that a lot of Giftstorm players love that I think is trash. Hot, steaming trash. Yes, if you want to play 19 lands, play 19 lands. Don't play this card. Like, a tapped land is not good enough for Modern anymore. The format is so fast, and then you wonder why you get pummeled by Hammer Time. So don't play this card. Also, like, 3 mana Glorified Impulse is not playable. So if you're looking for these effects, either play more cantrips, play more lands, do what you got to do. Do not play Selene Vision. It's just not playable. I'm sorry. And then down here we have Solve the Equation. This was a card that I thought was going to be Giftstorm playable for a long time, and then they went and printed Wish. So if they didn't print Wish, I'd probably still be playing this, but, you know, it got power creeped out very quickly, in my opinion. Lee Situan, and these were not a part of the signing that I sent to Lee on my own. These were actually done through Mark Aronowitz's group signing service. But if you're interested, Lee does sign. But it was like $85, if I remember correctly, to ship around the world. So I'd probably just send through Mark's service if you're trying to get your card signed by them. Sleight of Hand. These were cards I got from Tim Cicino, but I can't remember if I got these signed or if Tim had them signed already. I just have no memory of it. So not a whole lot to say here other than 7th edition foils are the pinnacle of beauty in Magic the Gathering. It's just a lot of fond memories from my childhood. Plus, they're actually just gorgeous. Like, they're beautiful, beautiful cards. That's all there is to really say about it. We talked about Opt, Void Snare. Zach Stella used to live in southern New York and then moved to Seattle to work for Wizards, and it's been very difficult to get signatures by Zach for me ever since then. So I'm hoping that Zach resurfaces at a Grand Prix or something in order to get a few copies of Void Snare signed. Once again, Wesley Burt. Jeff Clark got these signed when he got my Baral signed. Kind of crazy that Jeff went to the Black Panther opening just for signatures, but hey, Jeff, you're the best. I mean that. Thank you. More copies of Echoing Truth. I actually got these signed at Magic Fest Vegas, or maybe it was Grand Prix back then, I don't remember, but the one that was 3 main events, and it was just a miserable trip. But I ended up getting like 100 cards signed on that trip, which just made it worth it for me. We were supposed to fly out of Syracuse at like 5:30 p.m. Thursday night and land in Vegas at like 1 a.m. We didn't even leave Syracuse until like 1 or 2 a.m. We landed in Chicago at like 3 a.m. Our flight was at 5 a.m. And we landed in Vegas after the main event had started. So we just, thankfully, both of us had buys, but we ended up like wheeling our luggage into the main event center and playing with our luggage next to us. It was a miserable travel experience, but hey, at least I had this terrible story out of it. The 4th copy of Electromancer, we talked about that up above. Mark Nelson. So I got these the month after Mark went to Grand Prix Austin, and then Mark hasn't responded to any emails or messages or whatever since then. I wanted to get these signed by Mark Nelson. So if Mark ever resurfaces at another Grand Prix, I'll probably try to get these signed. But kind of a bummer that I was just like a month too late on those. That said, I don't think Remand is actually playable anymore in Modern. It's just, with all the pitch spells in the format, it doesn't do what it did back in 2017 and 2018. I think people have these fond memories of doing sweet plays instead of being rational. And like the whole grape shot or Remand your grape shot play is so cute and like not actually that relevant anymore unless you're playing in a casual setting. I am looking to spike. I am a competitive person. I want to win all the time. If you just want to do sweet plays, then Remand is probably fine, but I'm looking to win, and I don't think Remand does that anymore. Gigantha. Picked this up this month. Chris Ron goes to IllexCon in Pennsylvania every year. It's a convention for illustrators and artists, so if you're interested, definitely check that out. They have like 200 artists every single year. Chris Round usually goes to it, so that's a good opportunity to get your card signed. Lightning Bolt, Chris Muller. Uh, yeah, so were all signed at once, but I talked about this in a previous video. I think it was my vintage video, where you'll see Chris signed in two different spots. So these two both match here, but then these two are both over the text, and this is slightly above it. So it's like a wave. They're my lightning bolts. I'm going to keep them forever, but it's very odd. Strike It Rich, Vulcan Baga. I thought this card was going to be legacy playable, and then it's sort of just fine. I mean, I've tried it in Gruulstorm and Modern. I've tried it in a few different places. It's a fine card. It's just not quite good enough. I think if like the flashback on it was 2 mana, you'd start to really question it. But it's a fine card. It's just not quite as good as I wanted it to be. And then down here we have Aria of Flame. This card went from being like, oh my god, we have to play 4 of this, it's so effing good, to like almost unplayable. And I think a big part of that was like Aether Gust was for the first card to come onto the scene to combat it, and then Teferi, and then Force of Vigor. And before you knew it, this card was just like not good anymore. And it stinks that it happened, but you know, cards come and go with Magic. That's how it works. Things get power crept out, things get knocked out of the format. You have to just like live and learn, right? So these were signed by Greg Staples at SCG Con. Anderson and Leclerc, who's originally from Syracuse, got these signed for me, so thank you, Anderson. And yeah, moving on, we have the additional copy of Galvanic Relay, the extra copies of Empty, not the spare set. That's if you're interested in seeing the other signature, it's in my Epic Storm video, so definitely go check that out. Justin Sweet with Ignite Memories. I've tried a number of times over the years to get Justin to sign my cards, and it just never happens. They don't want to sign cards, I think. I don't really know. But yeah, another artist that lives in LA that will sign in person, but not via mail or group signings. Fergie. Eric DeChamps was, I mean, I sent these out and I got them back within 7 days. They were so quickly signed by Eric. So shout outs to Eric. And this was a card I tested over Goblin Electromancer for a little while, or aside, or with Goblin Electromancer for a little while. And the idea was that, you know, it was a slightly different effect, so that way your cantrips can end up breaking even. And on top of that, it gave you some, a backdoor to beating Graveyard Hate with the Horn. And that was really good for a little bit. But I think Bergie ultimately wasn't quite good enough, and it became very apparent once they printed things like Galvanic Relay to allow you to better sidestep Graveyard Hate anyway, so you didn't have to play a slightly worse Electromancer in order to get that effect. So Bergie, there was that short time period where I thought it was going to be nuts, but then they just kept on printing better cards over the year, and that's sort of the Fire Design philosophy. So maybe we'll leave Fire Design and some of these other cards will come back, but at the current rate, it just seems like cards are going to keep on getting better and better and better. All right, the last cards. We have Riverglide Pathway, I think it's called. You'll see the front here is signed by Kieran Yanner, but the back was unsigned. I was really bummed when I got these back and realized that, so maybe I'll have to send to Kieran again this year in order to get the back signed. Really, really bummed about that. Yeah, I mean, not the end of the world, but it did make me a little bit sad. And then if you're interested in more of these videos, here's the first 8 that have been uploaded. There's one more to be published tomorrow, and then I'm done with this. Whew, this has been draining. Doing all these, plus double videos, has just been really tough on me, if I'm being honest. So maybe we'll do this again next year. Maybe we won't. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments down below. And then if you're interested, here's the products that I actually use if you're interested in checking those out. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate you. Happy holidays. Keep storming. Have a great day. Hey, Bryant Cook here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, but also follow the social media channels down below. If you want to support this content directly, I would recommend going to theepicstorm.com/shop. And if you need a little bit of assistance with the Epic Storm to get to that next level, I would recommend going to theepicstorm.com/tutoring. Don't worry, there's more great content coming right up.